Well, hello, I'm Jerry McKee, and welcome to Primetime. We've got a great show for you tonight. We're going to be talking to Jeff Wright, Director of 911, and we're going to go over some things that you'll need to know, who to call, when to call, and maybe if you want to go into that field, he'll be able to answer some questions too. So you'll stay tuned, and we're going to be right back right after this message from La Fagata Mexican Restaurant. 441 North Duncan Bypass, Union, South Carolina, 864-429-4043. La Fagata, your family Mexican restaurants, has appetizers, child's plates, salads and soups, sandwiches, and desserts. Sizzling fajitas, Texas fajitas, shrimp fajitas. Also, they have great chicken, polo asado, chicken tenders, polo loco, and many more. If you like seafood, they have that also. Fish tacos, shrimp cocktail. They have many combinations that you can choose from in different price range. Matter of fact, they have 35 different ones. If you're a vegetarian, that's right, they can accommodate you also. Lunch menu, they have the Speedy Gonzales and about 13 others that you can make a combination with. That's La Fagata. La Fagata Mexican Restaurant. 441 North Duncan Bypass and Union, South Carolina. 429-4043. Okay, we're back, and we're going to be talking to Jeff Wright here. And let me switch over to him. There we go. Jeff, how you doing?
Good, Jerry. Good.
Well, it's nice seeing you again. And you put this little thing over here and like this, and there we go. You are now the director over Union County 911.
Yes, sir.
And it's a little bit different role than you had before as a police officer.
Yeah.
And tell us a little bit about yourself. What got you in, even because you was in police office, what, 24 years?
Yeah, 23 and some odd.
Months there?
Yes, sir.
Now, what got you started when you was growing up, going through high school and thinking, did you think about going into law enforcement as a career, or did you have other things in mind?
You know, I really didn't at all. A lot of people's asked me that over the years, and when I was young, I never would have thought in a million years I would have been in law enforcement. It was just one of those things that came about, and when it did, I got into it for a job, and then once I got into it, I really enjoyed it and figured out that I was good at it. And I liked dealing with people and loved answering the calls. And, you know, it's just like anything else. You go have your ups and downs, but I really loved law enforcement. You know, it was, to me, it was awesome.
Now, where did you start out in your law enforcement?
I started out in Lawrence County because at the time, that was back in 2000 when I started, 2000, 2001. You couldn't really find a job. It was one of those jobs to where somebody, I hate to say it that way, but somebody had to die or retire before you could even apply for a job in law enforcement back then.
Not like that now, is it?
Not like that now. It's just the opposite. You're out now, departments are out now just begging for people to come in and work. But, you know, and it's not really the change in the profession. It's just really the change in our environment around us is what it is for the most part. But,
now, did they have to, back then, did they have the same training they got now similar to it, or is it a little bit more intense now?
Yeah, well, in my opinion, it was a little more intense back then. It was more military-based back then to where now it's more liability-based. You is the big difference now. Back then, people wasn't really worried as much about getting sued, and now it's all about worrying about getting sued, being careful what you say and what you do, and more of that than protecting yourself. You know what I mean? So it's a lot different.
Right. And if you want to ask Jeff Wright a question, there's a number up on there, 864-441-9382. He can answer any question that you have for him. In today's society, it looks like everybody's looking to try to make that big buck of suing. I remember years ago that even when I was doing a video show and stuff like that, I ran across a couple wrecks and videoed it, and a lawyer called me. He said, "Now you can't put my name there because we can't advertise." They couldn't advertise for that.
Right.
Now it's everywhere. We're going to get you $100,000, and you hear them, all this right here. Somebody said, "Wow, yeah."
It's just, the commercials now just blow my mind. Some of the things that they say, it's almost comical. You're like, did they just say that? It's.
It is, and the ones that saying it, like I said, well, they look pretty good there on there, for having all this right here to get $1 million and stuff, and
right,
I lost my arm and leg and everything here, but I got $1 million,
That's right, yeah.
But and you're right, they're looking to do that. Now, when you first went to got through the academy and got to ride in your first car, I knew you had someone to ride with, training, and who stuck out mostly as far as your superior when you first started that really influenced you to just keep going?
Well, back then it was a little different. So we didn't really do a whole lot of it was a little more rough around the edges back then. But I would say the person that influenced me the most in law enforcement was Eddie Smith. Eddie Smith's from Union County, and most everybody around here knows Eddie. He was the chief deputy at the time over in Lawrence County when I went to work over there. And Eddie's just a good people person. And I learned a lot about how to deal with people from Eddie. Everybody used to say, Eddie could sell ice to Eskimos, So he was just, he could pull you over and convince you that you stole your own car. You'd be like, I don't know, maybe I did steal it. I don't know.
Maybe it's not me.
maybe it's not mine. I'm sorry. Am I going to jail? But Eddie was a real good cop, and I learned a lot about communicating with people from Eddie, and he had a long, good career in law enforcement.
Well, great. Now, to me, the most thrilling part, how did you feel when you first got on your own and climbed into that police car and you're out there on your own?
Scared, because you as a law enforcement officer, everybody looks to you for answers. Everybody thinks
right.
that and at that time you really don't, because you're just as new as you just still you don't really know everything, but you got to kind of just kind of work your way through it.
Oh, you didn't have to go to law school?
It would have been nice. It would have been nice.
Well, I know you get a lot of those questions asked,
Yeah, but I was scared to death, and once you kind of, and it all really just comes down to being honest, being truthful, mm-hmm. and if you don't know, find out, and that was, it takes a while, but once you get it, it's really a common sense profession. You don't really have to have a whole lot of book smarts, but you got to be able to communicate with people and talk to people and understand people, and all different varieties of people. So.
Well, I know if I went through, that's why I'm not a police officer. They said if I went through that, first thing I'll think is, get behind that car, and I get to pull them over and turn the blue light on. Where's my sister?
Yeah, well, I tell you, it was really hard for me because, like I said, I'm born and raised in Union, and I didn't know anything about Lawrence County, and that was back before you had a cell phone with GPS on it. All we had back then was a map book, and it was that thick, and so if you needed to find the road and you didn't know where it was at, you had to pull over on the side of the road and get your map book out and find where you was going. And
wow. That
was tough.
I didn't even think about that right there.
Man, when you're not from somewhere, it takes a while. But,
especially at night.
Yeah, and that's what I started out on, was night shift. And I remember when I first started, the lieutenant that night when I come in. So I graduated on a Friday, and Friday morning, and I started on the road that Friday night. And when I walked into they call it the muster room, there where everybody meets right before you start your shift. Mm-hmm. I remember he asked me, he said, Wright, you all right, or you want to ride with somebody for a few days? And I was like, no, I'm all right. He threw me some car keys. He said, you will be working Gray Court Fountain Inn. I was like, okay. I was walking out of the room, and he was like, I was just standing there, and he said, I said, where's Gray Court Fountain Inn? He was like, it's that way. And so I just got in the car and went that way.
Went that way?
Yeah. And I know that sounds crazy, but that's how, and that's why. I mean, I didn't know where I was at and just was scared to death. But, that starting off that way, it made it better for me in the long run.
Right. And you're telling yourself, no, I don't need to ride nobody. I need to go ahead and I need to get out there and know the roads and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember your first call?
I don't. I can't recall my first call.
Yeah, because that would be, exciting. That first call come across, you listen to the radio and you're new, and
I can only imagine how nervous I was, and it just depends on what kind of call it was, but I can only imagine, because I know how the fear that was in me, when I first started, but and that's everybody. It's going to be that way for anybody, and it's not just law enforcement. It's anything that you do that you don't really know what you're doing when you first started. You can go to training and go to classes, but until you actually step into those shoes and get out there and do it, you don't really know what you're doing until you do it.
Right. You got to get your hands wet. You got to get out there and touch, because you can do all kind of book stuff and you can look at videos, but until you get out there and do it. What is some of the something you can tell someone that's wanting to go into law enforcement and wants to take that path? What is some advice that you can give them?
It's got to be something that's, and I know it sounds weird to say it's got to be something you want to do, because like me, I just totally done it by accident. And I didn't know until I got in there and started doing it that I liked it and I enjoyed doing it. So, don't get discouraged if you get into that role and you have that fear or anxiety. Just keep going. Everybody makes mistakes, and that's what, people think, that you're not supposed to ever get it wrong, but you're a human being just like everybody else, and you're going to make mistakes. You're going to get things wrong. Just keep pushing on.
Right, and be honest with people. And
always be honest.
If you don't know something, ask.
If you tell them you're going to follow through with something, follow through with it. If you're not, tell them you're not, and people respect you for that, as long as you do what you say you're going to do.
Right, and then I think people respect you more for that.
Oh, absolutely.
Because they know that they can come to you, they can ask you this, or you can tell them it, and if you don't know, like you say, if you go find out. And
the best advice I could ever give anybody thinking about getting into law enforcement is always just keep in mind to treat people the way you would want to be treated. When you're dealing with somebody on the street, you want to treat them the way you would want somebody to treat you, or treat your mother, or treat your daughter, or treat your son.
Because that is someone's daughter, that is someone's son, and it might be someone that you run across later on.
That's true.
And and there's, we know it's a lot of bad on the street. We know it's a lot homeless. We know there's a lot of on drugs and stuff, and you got to have a little bit of compassion sometimes in a different situation.
Yes, sir.
So, well, I tell you what, we're going to come back. We'll talk a little bit about his law enforcement. Now we're going to get into what he does now, and that's the director of 911 in Union County. And we'll be back right after La Pagala tells us all about the good things they got to eat.
La Pagala Mexican Restaurant, 441 North Duncan Bypass, Union, South Carolina, 864-429-4043. La Pagala, your family Mexican restaurants, has appetizers, child's plates, salads and soups, sandwiches, and desserts. Sizzling fajitas, Texas fajitas, shrimp fajitas. Also, they have great chicken, polo asado, chicken tenders, polo loco, and many more. If you like seafood, they have that also. Fish tacos, shrimp cocktail. They have many combinations that you can choose from in different price range. Matter of fact, they have 35 different ones. If you're a vegetarian, that's right, they can accommodate you also. Lunch menu, they have the Speedy Gonzales and about 13 others that you can make a combination with. That's La Pagada. La Pagada Mexican Restaurant, 441 North Duncan Bypass in Union, South Carolina. 429-4043.
All right, we're back, and we're talking to Jeff Wright. He is the director of 911, and now we learned a little bit about his background and a little bit about his role as a police officer. And now his role is going to switch around a little bit. He's not in the patrol car and not patrolling the streets, but he knows where everything's going on, probably more so now than he ever did on the streets. So, Jeff, when they came and approached you about being the director of 911, what was your thoughts about that? Did you have any reservations, or you had to think about it, or?
I did have to think about it. I never really thought about it. I tell you how it came to be. I was actually working and went in and was talking to some dispatchers one day, and one of them said, you should come down here and work some part-time so I could get some days off. And he started laughing, and I was laughing. I said, you know what? I might do that. I might come try that. And I did. And just, in the short time that I was in there working part-time, I come to see how vital it is and how important it is. That dispatch center is really the information hub for Union County. I mean, nothing at all, emergency-wise, happens without going through that hub. Law enforcement, EMS, fire, emergency services as a whole, everything.
So that's really, like I said, you're going to learn a lot more, or you get the whole shebang instead of just kind of one part of it by being just on the police officer end.
Yeah.
Now, you're working a part-time like that, it's almost like you had to go back and learn a lot of stuff, even though you know some of the code, but that's totally a different ball game.
I'm going to tell you, I have a whole new respect for the dispatchers down there. And by the way, I want to say we got some really good dispatchers down at 911. We really do. And those people they put the hours in, and it's impressive.
They work long hours too.
They work long hours, and some people down there work, just you wouldn't believe it. But they have a really stressful job. But being in there and seeing it, and seeing how important it is and how vital it is. And at the time, unfortunately, McKee Brennan had passed away, so there wasn't really a director there at the time. And I just kind of overheard people talking about, the director job and this and that, and I was like, that's something that really needs to take front and center. It really needs a lot of attention, and people need to realize how important it is to have humans in there to answer those phone calls, and people who can just multitask like you wouldn't believe. I don't know if you've ever seen the inside of a dispatch center.
No, I never have, but I've always imagined you got all these computers up around and all these things going on, and thinking it's almost like an air traffic controller. It
really is. I mean, if you think about it, like your bigger dispatch centers, like Spartanburg, for instance, they've got. I guess really the best way to explain it is, how back when McDonald's was really popular and had people lined up out the door to come get McDonald's burgers, and they was trying to turn them out really fast, and they made a production line. So in those big dispatch centers like that, they've got people who do specific things. So you'll have one dispatcher who all they do is just answer the telephone and put the information in. And then you've got another person, their job is to dispatch that information out. And that's on one specific channel. So you've got more people, but they don't have to, do as much at one time. So they, like McDonald's, where you just put the pickle on the burger. That's your job.
Right. Just lay the pickle on there.
Lay the pickle on there. And so it's like muscle memory, and you get good at it. Well, that's the kind of the way that works with your bigger dispatch centers. So you got a call taker, and a dispatcher for one channel. When I say one channel, like just for instance, the sheriff's office.
Right.
Our dispatchers down in Union, they're going to take that call. They're going to dispatch that call. They're going to put it in the computer. They're going to dispatch it. And they're doing usually, well, all of them, always, more than one. So they could be doing the sheriff's office and EMS. So they're having to really multitask down there.
Now, does each, I don't know how many dispatchers you got on one shift. Now, or they take, like, for instance, one said, okay, I've got the sheriff's department here, and I've got the EMS here. The other one says, well, okay, I've got the fire and this right here, or is it
they've got a little rotation that they work off of. It's like kind of goes in order. You know, like today you might have the sheriff's office. Tomorrow you might have the police department. The next day you might have fire and EMS.
Now, does the city come through there also?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Because sometimes, the city has their separate ones or something like that.
No,
even the highway patrol too, right?
No, the highway patrol don't. They have their own dispatch center. That's the only thing that doesn't come through our.
But if someone calls the 911 and needs do y'all transfer them over to them? Okay, but they still coming through there, right?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know if Brandy's still there. Brandy. Do you have her last name now?
Oh, McFalls.
Yes,
McFalls. Yeah, she's still there.
Yeah, she because I knew she was working there, and she's a good person. And,
we've got some really good dispatchers in there. And like I said, I really until you actually go in there and see what they do, it's hard to visualize. A lot of people just think, well, they just sit in a dark room answering the phone. But it is really you have to be able to multitask like you wouldn't believe. I mean, to be able to monitor radio traffic. Vital radio traffic, very important radio traffic that you can't miss while you're on the phone with somebody, and then trying to type something all at the same time. That's you might go from doing that to not really having anything go on, but you can't determine from one day to the next how it's going to be.
How it's going to work. Now, when you was working part-time, when you first went in there to sit down, did you think when you went in like this, oh, well, I just had to do this and this right here?
Well, I kind of knew a little bit because, working in law enforcement, I was in there a lot. So every time we go to put something in NCIC, we'd go into dispatch. And a lot of times, especially if you work in the night shift, you might just stop in there to chit-chat, just to say, hey, and what's going on. So you kind of see it, but you don't really know what's involved in it until you're sitting at that console. And it's a lot. It's a lot to deal with. But once you get in it and you start getting used to doing it and start getting in that routine, for me it was a lot like, and I'm still not there. I'm not a great dispatcher. I'm just learning how to dispatch. As far as dispatching, I'm more of the people manager, the building manager, and keeping up with all that stuff. But I'm still working on my dispatching skills. So it's a lot involved, and it's a big learning curve.
Right now, I know this is even crazy. I used to watch Adam 12, when it come on, and when the intro of it comes on, it shows where a call comes in and they put it in and they see it like a letter going down through the big thing here and you go over here and this one picked it up and take it over there. Yeah. And I was thinking, boy, has technology ever come now? The codes. We hear codes. We hear I know M12, I can't remember. A 415 is a robbery on it, but there's quite a bit of codes, especially if people have got scanners. They know what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah, it's like learning a new language.
Right. Yeah. Right. And you being a police officer probably knew already on that aspect of it.
Right. Yeah.
But does it take long? And I guess it depends on the person to learn those codes, or do they have it in front of them to where they can kind of I want to say a cheat sheet, but a guide.
Yeah. Well, most of the training that we do for dispatchers, most of it's in-house training. And so they try to, Christian Sims is the training officer. He does a really good job. He usually does at least a week, sometimes 2 weeks, in the classroom setting to where he's just, going over 10 codes, going over types of calls, what to expect, playing calls for them, audio calls, letting them listen to calls, letting them practice putting calls in. So they don't just really go sit down on the console because, like I said, that's important. When somebody calls into 911, you can't really have somebody training and just sitting there and say, okay, well, this is how you're going to learn. Somebody just called into 911. So,
right. You're not going to learn right on hands.
Right. So they're going to have a really good understanding on what they're doing before they even go in there and start watching a live console. So
you have like a training room.
Yes, sir.
There. Now, does it have the consoles kind of like similar to the ones that they're going to be on? We'll have to get trained.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically a computer screen. It's basically just a keyboard and a computer. Now, there's several different computers. This works off switches, and it all kind of works off the same keyboard and mouse, but it all kind of works together to do the same thing. But, it's basically just knowing what to put in for the call. So when the call comes in, it's kind of it just depends on the type of call.
Right.
So
you got to be a fast typer.
You have to be a fast typer,
Yeah.
and you have to be able to spell good enough to get it to where the spell check can at least kind of tell you what you got there. You know what I mean?
I would be in trouble.
It's tough. It can get tough, and when you're under stressful situations, that's what makes it even worse. You got all the stuff that you're trying to memorize and remember, and make sure you do it right, and then you get a call that comes in that just, most people just hearing the call would, just kind of lock down.
Right.
But you've got to be able to get the information, keep the person calm, and get everything that you got to get, and then get that information out to the first responders so that they can respond to the call. So
you've got a lot of stuff going on, and you got to be quick to think. You got to be able to, like you said, multitask.
Yep.
Now, the training for 2 weeks, do you still have someone there with them when, say, okay, it's your training period? Do they have like a test out that they do?
Yeah, they have lots of different quizzes and tests through the classroom period. And then, they'll have some observation to where they're just sitting watching a dispatcher on the console, and then they kind of go back and forth. The overall training, just depending on how well they respond to training, usually could be anywhere from 5 to 6 weeks. Just depends on how they're responding to training.
Now, do they have any of this training out in some of the technical colleges? I know we got Spartanburg Tech, locally like this, that would benefit a training class there. I know they have different training classes for different things, from CDLs to all this other stuff, and it seemed like that would be a very important class that they could implement to have someone, not necessarily coming there, but have a mock-up. I've got a call in. Hold on a second. Well, they hung up. Well, whoever he was, call back.
You must have answered the question for him.
But it looks like that they would set up something like that to where they can go into the classroom and even have the computers there, and have a class like that. It gives an opportunity. Instead, I think it would probably save the county even money, because sometimes, yourself, you go to a job, say, yes, I want to do this right here, and you get there and say, oh man, I don't really like this. It's right here. But this way, it would give them an opportunity, and I think it would save the county money on training and going through all that process.
Well, you've got that process and all the in-house stuff, the 5 or 6 to 7 weeks there, but then you've also got to go either to the South Carolina Criminal Justice Academy or to one of the outside agencies to get actually certified, and that's another week-long class to take.
So. Okay, because I was thinking just police officers in cars that goes to the academy and is in Columbia, correct?
Yeah.
So how long do they go there?
A week.
A week?
Yeah,
okay.
It's a week class.
Now, what type of training do they have there? Because a lot of them's going to think, oh, I can't pass the physical, I can't pass the...
Yeah, there's not any physical stuff with it at the academy, and we're not going to really do our training through the academy. We're going to do it through APCO for the most part, and like I said, Christian is going to be the training officer, and he's going to set those things up. But APCO is accepted by the Criminal Justice Academy, so you can either do it online, or sometimes like other agencies will offer classes, like Chester and Cherokee County do them, and you can send officers up there to theirs. We're actually looking at getting Christian Sims trained up to teach it eventually, and then maybe we can do some classes here and do all our stuff in house, which would be great.
Okay. All right. We have been talking to Jeff Wright, Director of 911, and we'll be back here in just a moment. We will go to La Pagata and let you look at some food for a minute.
La Pagata Mexican Restaurant, 441 North Duncan Bypass, Union, South Carolina, 864-429-4043. La Pagata, your family Mexican restaurants, has appetizers, child's plates, salads and soups, sandwiches, and desserts. Sizzling fajitas, Texas fajitas, shrimp fajitas. Also, they have great chicken, polo asado, chicken tenders, polo loco, and many more. If you like seafood, they have that also. Fish tacos, shrimp cocktail. They have many combinations that you can choose from in different price range. Matter of fact, they have 35 different ones. If you're a vegetarian, that's right, they can accommodate you also. Lunch menu, they have the Speedy Gonzales and about 13 others that you can make a combination with. That's La Pagata. La Pagata Mexican Restaurant, 441 North Duncan Bypass and Union, South Carolina, 429-4043.
Cindy. Well, I had to see, right? Well, hello, I'm back. I'm Jerry McKee. We got a caller on the line, Cindy. Cindy, you have a question for Jeff?
I do. I was wondering, you have a really extensive background in law enforcement and being road. I was wondering how you became interested in doing 911 coordinating.
Well, it was like I was telling Jerry earlier, it was kind of by accident. I just started going up there and working some part-time. And then while I was in there, it kind of hit me how important it was and how vital it was. And at the time, the director had recently passed away, and there was an opening there. And I just felt like that. I kind of felt like that I could make a difference in there. And it's a big learning curve. I still got a lot to learn, but I'm putting both feet forward, and I jumped into it, head first. And I still believe, and I just think that it's going to be something that that's going to work out good for me and for Union County.
Cindy, are you interested in 911, or are you in law enforcement?
I am in law enforcement, but I'm on the prosecutor side.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. So yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of what got me into it. It's really, once you get in there, I never really looked at it that way until I was sitting in the console. It just kind of changed my opinion of it, and I that's what happened. That's how it happened. I know it sounds weird, but that's what it was.
All right. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy. Thank you for calling.
Right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, so that's some good information there. I think that do you give tours? If someone was interested in coming, yes, and just to see what it looks like, they would contact you to set up a time to come in and
absolutely
just kind of see.
Absolutely, to come through and just walk through. Now, there is some, as far as the actual dispatch center, but, you could come through the biggest majority of the building, and then the dispatch center, there is some places where there's windows into there we could see, but you can't really go into the actual dispatch center. But for the most part, yeah.
Oh, okay, so they can kind of look in through the window and see.
Right.
Well, that's just as good. I mean, yeah. They don't need to hear all that and be a distraction,
right,
for someone working in there, because that's one thing you don't need is and you
never
distraction.
know. You never know when something's going to happen. So they might be sitting in there with not a whole lot going on 1 minute, and then the next minute it's just wide open. So,
what is your busiest season, if you can call it that you just have? I know that, I don't know if you keep track of a way per year, different months, different times, and what's going on at that particular time.
Well, it's not really a season. It's just events. Like storms are really, really busy. You got trees down, lines down, power outages, cable outages. People, they're going to call in to 911 about all of that, and you having wrecks. And it gets really busy when you've got all those departments in motion at the same time. Right. So every time you dispatch somebody out, you've got to put something in the computer. You've got to put a command in there. And then when they are leaving the station, you got to put one in there. They're en route to the call. When they get to the call, you got to put something in there. And that's not just one person. That's, if you've got several responding, then, you've got a lot of moving parts and a lot of things going on. So if you've got a wreck happening where you've got multiple accidents or you've got multiple trees down, then you've got a lot of stuff moving at one time, and it gets pretty hectic in there. Same thing with like a chase. I know a lot of people probably heard the call the other week where the rogue ambulance come through town. And, you just got so much going on and so many people talking and so many moving parts, and it's just really hard to, it's just wide open.
Do they ever cross over and, it gets bundled up? Because I know in technology that if you got everybody on the same frequency and it comes across and they try to talk at the same time, so you've got, I guess you got to be the lead person in a way of communicating back and forth to the officers, to the EMS, to the ambulance.
Oh yeah, and during a time like that, it's just really trying to waiting in line. You just trying to, if you got something you need to say, it's like, there's so much going on because it's in the moment. It's not like, as it happens, they're trying to get the information into you and to the other officers. So it's not just getting the information to us, but they're talking back and forth to each other. So it's really tough. So, we might have an instance where we've got some information that we need to give, but they're back and forth doing what they're doing their job, communicating with each other via the radio, and it's just sometimes it's wild.
Well, I noticed that also, even on Facebook, I'll see that where the 911 will send out a weather information that a storm's coming up, and it's preparing people to let them know. So that's another a line of communications, because a lot of people don't have scanners.
Yeah.
For one thing, to listen to all that, and some that has it, like me, I keep mine off because I don't like all the chatter on it, because it is. But using Facebook, which is a great communicator, media outlet that you send out, because I've seen the weather reports come across there. So, wow, there's a storm coming up. It's come up here. It's been cited. Right. And that's another good tool that you use, but it's another apparatus that you have to go in to do this. I don't know if you do it personally or someone else does it.
Lee Brannon does it. He's the emergency preparedness director for Union County, and he does a really good job at keeping up with all the weather, and he does a really good job at keeping me informed and everybody else. And so when he sends it to me, I send it out over Facebook and send it to the dispatchers, and just try to keep people as informed as we can. But Lee stays on top of that.
Well, I know I get email from the Sheriff's Department whenever something's a media release, mm-hmm. and I don't know if y'all go through them sometimes to do that, or do you do it yourself? Their type of media release for the weather or something? For the
weather stuff, it's usually just like a list. I'll just email it out to the people that I think it's going to affect the most.
Right. Okay. Now, when I know you got the weather, you got all this right here, and I don't know if we got to the question or not, where is there any particular season or any particular month that is worse than others?
It's usually, in the wintertime you got snow, and it's not really, used to, right when school got out, you would usually have a little busy period there where everybody's just, wild and crazy
right
for a couple of weeks. But that's not even really the case much anymore. I mean, you still might have a little bump in call volume when school gets out, but it's not as bad as it used to be.
right. I didn't know if around Christmas time from the holidays
Usually it's not the call volume don't really change, it's the type of calls will change. So during the Christmas months, you might have more break-ins and robberies, people trying to get money together or whatnot. Shopliftings, yeah. And so, just the type of calls change. The call numbers usually stay pretty steady year-round. It's usually around we usually keep up with those by the quarter. It's usually around 2,000 calls a quarter. And, you got some of these counties like Spartanburg and stuff like that where they're at 5,000. So,
right.
It's a big difference.
Now, I know your dispatchers communicate with the officers and EMS, but do they have communications with like Spartanburg, Greenville, Gaffney?
Oh, yeah. See, we have a lot of those calls come in based off of where you're situated when you call 911. So if you're right near a county line, so you might be in Chester County, but you might be close enough to where when you call, it hits our 911 center. So a lot of times we'll transfer those calls, over to them, and we have a lot of communication that way. And sometimes we've had trouble transmitting the call, so you just kind of got to go back and forth with them until they can get somebody to where they're at. So we've had situations like that before too.
Now, with the technology you got there, when someone calls in like that, do their name show up and the number? I know used to, none of that showed up.
Yeah.
But
used to it was all landline phones, and so back when the landline phones, you would have a name, an address, and all that good stuff. But now with cellular phones, and most people don't really have like a contract service. Most people have like the prepay cell phones and stuff like that. So it comes in different phases. So when the call first comes in, you'll have a good general idea of where it is, and the longer you're on there, the more isolated it'll get. Sometimes you might see at first you might just see the tower that they're hitting off of.
Okay.
So whatever tower they're closest to is the address that you'll see. But then the longer you're on the phone, and they call it like going to phase 2. So when it goes to phase 2, then you can see more of where they are, and it's not 100% accurate, but it's pretty close.
Right. It's kind of like used to years ago when I said, "Oh, hold them on the line such a length of time to trace the call."
Kind of that, yeah, kind of the same kind of thing. It's not really tracing it, but the longer it's on there, the more information you can get.
Okay, I knew. Actually, I used 911 the other night. There was a suspicious DUI in front of us. Yeah. It was all over the road and going almost in head on a couple times and off on the other side. And I called, and the lady was very nice. And I was trying to tell them, where the road I was on, the location. And that's very important, giving details.
Yeah.
You can give her their tag number.
Yeah. And that's another thing that dispatchers, have to be good, because sometimes, it's going to pop up and give you an idea of where they are, but you've got to have a good idea of what roads are and what, because a lot of times people don't know what road they're on. They might say, I just passed old Carlisle Fish Camp. You know what I mean? So stuff like that.
John's Barn down there.
That's right. Points of interest, just places that, you've got to know where things are. So,
and that's, and I do a lot of driving, especially sometimes at night. I get called out, and I try to make aware of what road I'm on. Because you never know what's going to happen. You might hit a deer.
Yeah, it's a good habit.
Accident. I look at mailbox numbers.
Oh, yeah.
And just kind of, I don't have to count every one of them, but I can be in that general area.
Yeah, at least the block range.
Right. So I try to let myself, even in places I've never been before, I try to recognize the road. Even if I'm using my GPS, it tells me, you're on state road, da-da-da-da.
Oh, yeah.
And because it's very important to give detailed information when someone calls.
Mm-hmm.
And that's probably some of the things that you can suggest is when a caller calls in is to try to be calm and give much detail as you possibly can.
Yes. Be calm, give detail. A lot of times people are very excited because, it's something really traumatic going on most of the time if somebody's calling 911. So of course, they're going to be excited. Somebody might be hurt or whatever, and they're going to be talking really fast and really loud just because that's human nature to do that when you're afraid. You're hollering and you're talking really fast.
The adrenaline's going.
But really it's making it worse because you're going to have to say it again and again and again. So, but, again, that's one of those things until you're in that position, it's going to be hard for you to realize that you don't even realize that you're doing it most of the time. People don't know that they're hollering, that they're talking really fast because, they're something terrible is going on, and that's just how they react. That's normal human nature.
All right. We're going to be right back. We're going to find out what is an emergency and what is not an emergency call, and kind of what numbers that you need to call if it's a non-emergency. And we're going to talk a little bit about that right after this message from
La Pagada Mexican Restaurant, 441 North Duncan Bypass, Union, South Carolina, 864-429-4043. La Pagada, your family Mexican restaurants, has appetizers, child's plates, salads and soups, sandwiches, and desserts. Sizzling fajitas, Texas fajitas, shrimp fajitas. Also, they have great chicken, polo asado, chicken tenders, polo loco, and many more. If you like seafood, they have that also. Fish tacos, shrimp cocktail. They have many combinations that you can choose from in different price range. Matter of fact, they have 35 different ones. If you're a vegetarian, that's right, they can accommodate you also. Lunch menu, they have the Speedy Gonzales and about 13 others that you can make a combination with. That's La Pagada. La Pagada Mexican Restaurant, 441 North Duncan Bypass and Union, South Carolina, 429-4043.
All right, we're back, and we're talking to Jeff Wright, Director of 911, and giving some great information. So anywhere from where, how you apply, we're going to get to that too, but we're also going to talk about what is an emergency and what is not an emergency, and that's a key thing because we always got to know what is an emergency and what is not, and we want to make sure you get it right. So, Jeff, how about telling us a little bit, what is considered an emergency or non-emergency? Either one. We start with emergency.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's different for everybody. What you might consider an emergency might be something different than what I would consider an emergency. So to us, really every call is an emergency. And no matter which number you call, you're going to get the same people pretty much. So, if you call in, if instead of trying to look around for the numbers, either way, you call 911 or you call 429-1611, which is the non-emergency number for 911. A lot of people will call and they'll say, then I fell and I'm hurt, but I didn't want to tie up a 911 line. Well, it's not possible to tie up a 911 line. So we've got plenty of lines, if people want to call in on 911 instead of trying to figure out what number they need to call. By all means, if you're having any type of situation, call 911. It's fine.
Well, to one person, they say, well, that's not an emergency, but to that person, it is.
Hey,
I mean, it's a panic.
You're on the floor and you can't get up. That's an emergency. And like I said, everybody's emergency is different,
Right.
So that's one of those things, just disclaimer-wise, you can call 911. It's the reason it's easy to remember numbers. So anytime you got something going on, just dial 911 if you need to. But we do have the 1611 that is an admin line that is in place for non-emergency calls.
Right.
But
now these, you're talking about falling down like that. I know some elderly people, some's got these little things that they push. Mm-hmm. Does the county have that, or does that belong to someone else? It's
outside source, just like an alarm, just like you would have an alarm on your house.
Right.
So it kind of works the same principle, and to just come back and say, Jane Doe lives here and her alarm just went off. She has a history of seizures, or she has a history of falling, or whatever.
Right.
So they'll just kind of give you that type of information, and it works out good because a lot of a lot of people live at home alone, and they might not be able to get to a phone. So
it's like it's like a third party that this goes to, and they call because they already got that information, where the address and stuff like that, so they kind of pay for that service to call there. Now, what about in some of the businesses here that's got alarms? Is it works on the same way? Because I know that bigger cities things it goes directly into the dispatch that this alarm is going off. There's something going on there. Does the county have this? Or?
We have a few that I know of that go directly into the dispatch center, one being the judges' chambers and stuff. They've got those emergency buttons in there.
Right.
A lot of that goes straight into the 911 system, but for the most part, all the rest of it is contracted out through alarm companies.
Okay. Well, I didn't know about. I knew the button. I just thought that went downstairs and they'd come running up. And
no, it goes into dispatch. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good enough. I didn't know that part of it. Now, if like for instance, someone wants to come and to apply, where do they apply for a position?
You can apply online through the Gear Up website, the Union County website, or you can come by the dispatch center. We've got applications there. When you come into the front lobby, we'll give you an application there. But either way's fine. Most people now apply online. We still have a few come in to pick up applications, but for the most part, most people do it online.
Okay. Now, tell me, what are some of the qualifications that they must have?
Well, obviously, a high school diploma or GED, lack of a criminal history. You've got to be able to be certified through the Criminal Justice Academy. I'm sure there's more that I'm just not thinking of off the top of my head right now.
They take the drug test also?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Drug test, drug screens. No real physical type testing at all, other than just normal stuff for insurance purposes.
Okay. Now, do they do you have an aptitude type test? I know with my company, we have a mechanical aptitude test that they have to take before we even consider it. If they don't pass that, then it goes no further.
We don't currently, but we have talked about doing that because it has been an issue in some of the things, some of the vocabulary type things. So we have discussed doing that, and that's something that Christian Sims is going to be working on in the future. Yeah. So I would see us really soon having some type of, at least some type of vocabulary testing.
Yeah, possibly
multitasking,
little
testing,
maybe keyboarding.
Keyboarding is real important.
Because
it really is.
Because you got. I hate to say this, but all the younger folks coming up, they're thumb typers.
Yeah.
And they're good at it, and they're fast at it. And I'm sitting here, click, click, click,
Yeah.
But I can type pretty fast on the computer. My wife, I think she types like 150 words per minute without any mistakes.
Nice.
And I'm like 15 per minute with a lot of mistakes. But I can see that that's got to be very important with dispatching because, like you said, spelling's got to be pretty well accurate for that spell check to check because they don't check everything right.
The main thing's roads. Road names.
Right.
You got to at least get it close enough to where it'll read it. And we've got some good. Our Zerker system is really good at recognizing names and roads and stuff. So that helps. But you've got to be able to go from 0 to 100. You've got to be able to multitask. And you've got to be able to enjoy dealing with the public and being willing to help people because that's what we do at dispatch. We service the public and also the departments. The sheriff's office, the police department, Jonesville Police Department, EMS. So we have a full plate.
Now let me ask you this. Now I know that Union's growing.
Yeah.
And we've got some new roads. Who gives you the information that, okay, we've got a new road that we've cut through here, and it's logged as a county road and not, I don't know, do you get county and individual drives and stuff like that?
Yeah, Miss Linda Mitchell is the GIS coordinator for Union County, and she is phenomenal at that kind of stuff, and that's what she does. She has built that system from the ground up. She's been doing it since the GIS first came out and started. She was telling me that when they first started, they would get out and have to walk off to measure the distance in the front of the house with their feet, and just marking off and making maps of roads and houses and addresses to where now, everything's computerized and she's still right there on top of it. And she does a phenomenal job with that stuff. And it's so much to keep up with. The address.
I can imagine that. That alone, because what we're getting I think it's like 400 houses getting ready to be built.
Yeah.
And each one of those got to be logged as a house number, as a street. And so that's she's going to be tied up a little while just getting that put in.
Oh yeah.
And I can only imagine, because we've got some rural areas, we got some way out to the to Cross Keys, other places, that's way out, because this is good sized county, and you got some people say, hey, I'm going to build me a long driveway here, and I think that's important too. If you talk about that in a minute, about having where you live at, the number displayed and marked.
Very important. Very, very important. I'm glad you said that. We had that come up in one of the recent fire meetings that I was at, as one of the things that we really need to get out to the public is how important it is to mark your house. I mean, if you have an emergency, I know people don't like to think about that because they don't think it's going to happen to them. But, those guys driving that ambulance, they don't know where you live. Right. They're going off of that number. And so they're looking for a number. They're going down the road and they see if they're looking for 400 and they get to 300, they start slowing down and they're looking, but they're wanting to see that number. And the quicker and easier it is for them to see it, then the quicker they're going to get there to help you. Right. Same thing with the fire department. If your house is on fire, minutes matter. And
exactly
with a heart attack or any type of medical condition, minutes really matter. So please make sure that your numbers are marked, very visible, reflective if possible. A lot of the fire departments in Union offer that service for free.
Wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah, a lot of them do. Now, I don't know which ones exactly, but...
well, I know I've seen out driving through the country like it, I've seen the green with the white, and it's reflected. It stands out because it's, it's like about a foot long and few inches wide, but I could see it, and there's a lot of houses that's out, and I noticed that you don't see them from the road.
There's a lot of houses that have no numbers on them. They don't even put numbers on them, and that's tough. I mean, you don't know, so you're going up there and you're saying, okay, well, I know this one's this number and that one's this number, so that's probably got to be this one. But during that process of elimination,
you're wasting time,
wasting valuable time.
Yeah, and that's what why we're doing this is to get people aware of the importance of these things here, because time and to get someone there quickly. Yeah. And also, it's safer for the drivers of these vehicles, that they're not, we've got to stop here real quick. There might be vehicles behind them. It might be, it's a coordination between life and death. Yeah, and it's like smoke alarms and things in your house. It's very important to have these things.
Very important.
And they can contact some of their fire stations just to see if they do offer that service, and if not, go spend $5-10 or whatever like that, and go order you one. I mean,
yeah. And I'll the next fire meeting that I'm at, I'll find out, and I'll post a list of the fire departments that do offer that service on our Facebook page, or send it to you or something. And
do that. We'll post it out there, because it's very important, and because we got great technology, but yet sometimes that technology doesn't work as well. I know that. I don't get services here in Cross Keys, even on my AT&T and my Verizon.
Yes, yeah.
And if you're cutting in and out, time is valuable.
Oh yeah, and sometimes you might not have anything but just an open line. So you might not even know what number you're going to. You know that you're getting a call from this location, and dispatch can put you in the general area, but you just got to kind of find it. So
yeah. So we got some work to do on our end. It's just not all just left up to Miracle 911. And,
That's right.
and if you want to get a position and really want to serious about it, give them a call. Don't call 911. Just go online and look at it, or drop by and see if you can get an application. Well, Jeff, we're at our top of the hour. I appreciate you coming on and enlightening us about 911. And this has been a great interview. And I'm going to switch this off right here. And I just want to let everybody know that tune in next week. Bill Randall's going to be on. He's going to talk to us a little bit about all the things from his life, from beginning to what he's doing now. And he's going to be a good thing. And I want to thank Jeff Wright and Director of 911 for being on here today. And you stay tuned to next week until we have Bill Randall on, and keep looking at It's Your Community, It's Your page to see all these things and see some things come across that Jeff will send to where to find out about these fire departments and stuff that will have the number that you can maybe put out there on your yard. If not, make one, put it out, buy one, okay? I'm Jerry McKee, and thank you for staying with us and listening.